Hello, friends, creative strategists, Facebook advertisers, happy people everywhere. Welcome to the third episode of the Creative Strategy Podcast. This is the podcast where we dissect creative processes, idea generation techniques, and secret stories of the world's most talented creative strategists in the e-commerce performance marketing space. I'm your host, Brett Friedman, a smiley guy who lives and breathes creativity, once called one of the rare guys in e-commerce who consistently comes up with out-of-the-box ideas. So that's a little bit about me. Today we're here to hear from Michael O'Brien, the James Joyce of Facebook ads, the man behind million-dollar hits for Hims, Hers, and soon True Classic. Learn how his optimistic attitude got him through layoffs, about what the hell creative strategy is anyway, and how to split your budget between scale and testing campaigns. Listen to him launch ad ideas left and right for tree surgery and gutter stoppers. Pay special attention to his storytelling, as it's the way he pitches off-the-wall concepts and gets away with it with any kind of client or brand he's working on. And then we'll finish up with a massively growing topic, how to crack TikTok, from the team that earned a 70% conversion rate for their first TikTok creative exchange client ever. Without further ado, one of the best copywriters and characters in the industry, Michael O'Brien. Curses abound in this one, so viewer discretion is advised. Welcome to the show. This is Brett and Michael O'Brien on the podcast today. Tell me a little bit about your career path in creative strategy, some of the brands you've worked on.
So I initially did college for film and TV and stuff. Really small school, shout out DKIT, let's hope, what up homies. So I was there and I studied that for 4 years. And then after that I think once you're in a course like that, immediately you should try and find a job in that field, because if you don't, or if you're waiting, you pause and you're oh, I'll go work in a coffee shop until something happens, nothing will happen. Yeah. You'll still work in a coffee shop
forever.
So straight away I was okay, I really got to do something. And at the time, the Irish government, such bastards, but they had this thing called the jobs bridge, where essentially I was on unemployment, but I had a job, and that company would pay me €50 a week.
Yeah.
Was it a week or was it a month? I hope it was a week. But €50 a week to essentially work for them, indentured servitude.
It's really low. Is that enough to live on? Or?
No, because my mom bankrolled me. My mother. Mom is mother in Ireland, but she bankrolled me, and I stayed at my cousin's house and stuff like that. So I did that for a year, over a year. It was really good experience. It was just filming companies, essentially kind of filming ads. So it was filming events or testimonials and stuff for companies, right. And then editing them and then sending that back to them. So that was really good for filming, for editing, for even discussing with customers and stuff like that, front facing customers. Really good experience. And then, but I was getting paid $50 a week or whatever doing that stuff. Yeah, so I needed something else. And they did offer me a job. They wanted me to stay, but by that time, I'd already decided that I wanted to emigrate, because Irish people just always emigrate. So that's when I I told them I was moving to Canada. And to be fair to them, they did give me €1,000, a check for €1,000 to go and start my new life, wow. Which is really nice, really generous. Yeah. So they didn't have to do anything. I know I worked essentially as a slave for them, but they didn't have to do that anyway. But they just did it, and I feel I hope it was because I did a decent job and contribution, and the stuff that I always still now you want to be open and fun, and make work a place people want to go. And I think everyone can do that. It's all about your fucking. Can we curse?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Good.
Just my podcast, dude. Just posting this to YouTube and LinkedIn.
So yeah, and just that was a really good experience. And then I kind of just moved to Canada after that. It's still, at that time, it was still, the plan was to do kind of film stuff. So the first job I got in Canada was at Dubs and Subs company. It's Juice Worldwide. Actually, there's some stories in here. It was Juice Worldwide. I had a friend who was working there, and he got me an interview, and I just went in, and I guess I must have said something they liked, because they gave me the job. And that one was working night shift, so I would go in at 12 o'clock at night, and then 8 a.m. I would go home. But I lived across the street too. My condo was across the street from the building, convenient. So it was super convenient. Yeah. So I just come home and at 8 and just pass out for the day, and then wake up, and it was weird. It was that kind of schedule was weird.
Yeah. So what was the actual work? What were you doing for them?
So it was HBO was my fucking like
Friend.
client or whatever. Yeah, so they would send us like all the HBO shows, and like we would get Game of Thrones, it was season 5. We would get it a few days before, so I get to watch it.
That's so cool.
Like for work, I would sit down and watch it. At like 2 a.m. or whatever.
And you were coming up with ads for it? Like
no, that was just writing subtitles and dubs. Not
Yeah.
even writing. It was like essentially just we would bring the project into the file into like Premiere Pro,
Yeah.
and then someone would already have made the dubs file or the
Yeah.
subs file, and it was literally just drag it, run some checks, export it,
Yeah.
and that was it. It was such a handy job. Like, didn't get paid loads. It was decent, first job. But
Yeah. So how
in
did this
Canada-
all pivot into creative? Like it all is media related.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a whole thing. Well, so then, right, okay. From that job, it was nice. I was there for about 6 months, but they actually let me go, right? Because an episode of Entourage, the French version of it, midway through the French version, an English kind of section just popped in, like, so they'd be like, bonjour, blah, 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 a bunch of French stuff. Yeah. But then the English section was like a curse word, so it was like, yeah, go fuck yourself. And then it would go back to French, and they like called me in after work one day, and they're like, how did this happen? And I was like, fuck knows, I don't know. So I was like looking at stuff and like being like, I wonder how this might have happened. And like literally after 20 minutes, I was like, what? They think I did this. It's like, I didn't do it. Why would I do this? And they're like, why did you do this? It's like, I didn't. Like, why? It's such a dumb prank. They're like, was it a prank? It's like, no. So that was the whole thing anyway. Yeah. And so then they let me go then. But I was always like, even when stuff like that happened, I never care. I was like, called Mom. I was like, yeah, they let me go. She's like, oh my God, are you okay? And I was like, yeah. I was like, go get a new job. It's not a big deal. And then after that one, I went to work for like 3D conversion. Like it was a company that would like get movies in, and then they would convert them to 3D with like I can't remember the software that we used, but like you'd get the shot, and then you'd like draw lines and like drag stuff, and like it was really interesting too. And the company was like, the people there were cool. That was really like a fun group that I was working with.
It was like a startup or something.
It wasn't even a startup. I think they had they had some other places in like America and stuff or whatever. And then so I think they got a grant to come set up in Toronto, so they probably got I don't know, a couple million or whatever to set up this company.
Wow.
As like a to hire Canadians.
That's awesome.
And essentially what they did was they took that money and they went to India and they set up the company there, and then they like let us all go. So they like called us again. So I just keep getting let go, right? So they called us in one day. And they were like, yeah, can all the new hires, again, it was like 2 or 3 months I was there, it wasn't that long. Can all the new hires come up, we want to talk to you. And everyone was like, oh, fuck, we're all getting let go. And I was like, why would they let us all go? They just all hired us. It makes no sense. So we went up and they let us all go. And like, I was fighting the urge to laugh. Everyone was hiding their heads. They're like, oh my God, like, what am I going to do? And I was like, I can't believe they're letting us go already. Like, what the fuck? And like the whole company. So they had like a policy of like working overtime.
Yeah.
And I just milked it. I would just like go in and like essentially just slow work for like 12 hours a day, and like the overtime money was really good, so I was just like yeah. And then like I would be doing nothing, like really slow working, just getting it done or whatever. And my boss is like, you should be doing more. It's like, what are they gonna do? Fire me? And we all had a good laugh, and we continued on with our slow working or whatever.
They fired everyone.
Yeah, well this is after we'd all known or whatever, but yeah, so we just finished it. So I worked on the Meg, the Jason Statham movie.
Oh no, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a big shark movie or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
I have seen that.
Yeah, the Meg 2 just came out recently as well. And they'd worked on Thor Ragnarok just before I got hired, and I was like, that's such a cooler thing to work on than some fucking B movie with Jason. I'm sorry, Jason, if you're watching, like, I love you, you're great and all, but yeah, it's Thor is cool. Yeah. That would have been great to work on.
Thor's a legend.
Yeah.
He's got the hammer.
So after that is when I finally got into like digital marketing through a job at Training Business Pros, which is in Toronto, and it was up north. Oh my God, I worked there for like 3 years, and it was like literally an hour and a half commute to and from there oh my God, it was tough.
It was worth it? Like, what would you work on? What'd you do? The first like real experience, and
kind of. So they had a studio at the back, so really small company. Like there was maybe 3 or 4 people when I first joined, and it was kind of like a family business. So the Tobys, amazing people, really nice. But they were doing marketing, and he's a really interesting guy. He was like a pianist for ages, and then after 9/11, like his building got shut down because of like all the thing or whatever, so he lost his record thing, and then he had to go back home, and then his dad, like, so I heard the story a bunch of times because he did coaching, so he did all this stuff, so I heard the story over and over again, so now I know it. And he finally got into coaching and marketing and stuff, really kind of like self-made guy. Like he would just go and like learn how to do websites and did all that stuff. So he had a coaching studio at the back, and they would film essentially him just talking, like, you know, it's like coaching or whatever. Yeah, motivational. And then like we would stream it so people would come, or they could watch online and stuff like that, and we would do courses. So that's kind of how I got the job initially, was just because I would have had that experience. And then I actually learned loads there. So I learned like how to build websites and like Facebook marketing and like, you know, making ads on Facebook and stuff like that too. But again, I feel like I was fine. I don't think I worked especially hard either. But it's funny because they were all like, "Oh my God, you're such a hard worker," and I was like, "Oh, okay." So essentially, was working there for ages. COVID happened then. Let go for the third time.
Sorry.
But again, because the company was like, you know, they just weren't making any money.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like the last two. But and then I was just unemployed for a couple of weeks, and I think I was on LinkedIn maybe. And I think I just saw, you know, I had no idea what a creative strategist was or whatever, but I just applied for it and it looked cool. And I didn't even think about it. And then they got back to me a couple of weeks later, because that's just what North American companies do. They're like, "Oh, we need somebody."
Is that not normal in Canada or in Ireland?
No, in Ireland, like if you need someone, you would interview some people like 1 week and then you hire the next week. But in like Canada and the US, it's just like, "Oh fuck, we really need someone to work on this. All right, let's do a 6-month search." And you're like, "Buddy, I applied 6 months ago. Like, I'm gone. I've been hired. I've been hired and let go since then. So yes, I will take the job." But yeah, they got back to me, and I'm not sure who it was. I think it was a recruiter I was talking to, and they were just like explaining the job, and I was like, "This sounds amazing. Like, why would they ever want me?" And then somehow, you know, I fucking talked my way into the job, and I think that was because Ready Set, you know, love you, Ready Set, they're the best, but they focused a lot on like, I think the people too, like making sure that you know that like the people are cool and like easy to work with, and like, you know, all that stuff. So I think that definitely helped me get into Ready Set. And then once I was there, I was just like, "Oh my God, I've made it now. This is great."
Greatest job ever. Wow. So your first foray into like real creative strategy was at Ready Set.
What was that Ready Set?
Yeah. What did you think? You're like, what is creative strategy? What did you think it was, and then what do you now know that it is?
At the time, the write up, the description of the job was like, it's like Saturday Night Live. You all come together and you pitch some ideas and you make some ads. And I was like, okay, that sounds pretty cool. And then you get in and it's just like, okay, you have ads to make, go and do them now. And you're like, where's the team? Where's the fun shooting ideas off each other?
Chase, like.
Yeah. So I think now I would know that it's more, you know, it's definitely more just like coming up with stuff and like strategy and like, you know, planning. It's all a research, I think.
Yeah.
Researching whatever the brand is, and then just trying to figure out a way to like use whatever you have to make ads to sell to those people, because I think it's really problem solving. In a nutshell, I think creative strategy is, because you're like, okay, here's your brand, they have no footage. You know, what do you do? And you're like, okay, well, I guess we got to get footage, or, you know, we can grab testimonials or whatever. And like, it's really just kind of piecing that stuff together to make it like a usable piece of content that might potentially sell. And that's easier depending on obviously the brand or whatever, or even like internal companies, like how well they're set up internally compared to like agencies, which have a lot more stuff.
Yeah, lots of resources. So like, if you were just working on a new brand, for example, what's like the process you would go through to work with them?
I mean, certainly researching, you know, what they do first.
Yeah. So how do you do research? Like,
strategy-wise,
what do you go through?
A lot of, you know, the first thing is their website, because you got to find out like what the company is.
What they sell.
And it happens in agency life too, where you'll get like clients that you've never even heard of, and you're just like, okay, well, I gotta, like, who is this? Like, I gotta go and like find out like what they do. So like Key Sunglasses or something that I'd never heard of. But when I saw that brand came in, and I don't think anyone ever did that at Ready Set, but like the brand would come in and I'm like, fuck, I want that one. So I would like go to Monique and I was like, give me that. She's like, you have 2 clients already. And I was like, yeah, but the sunglasses one is cool. Let me do that one too. So yeah, go into their website and just kind of, you're looking at reviews, I think. You're looking at, the type of ads that they made before, because obviously tone is important too, because some companies are very brand focused, or some companies are more performance focused. Obviously, I prefer performance than the brand teams, because I just want to sell stuff. But I think a lot of that is just like early research, and then trying to see what they've done already, and then trying to formulate a plan, first of all, with whatever they have, and then eventually get enough resources together that you can like do what you want to do and that you think it's going to work.
Yeah.
It's usually how I work,
yeah.
I think.
And once you get some research, and then you start to create this plan, how do you come up with the ideas for the actual ads?
A little peek behind the kimono here, I think,
Unbutton yourself.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is seeing what's worked for us in the past, or like ads, like concepts that I've seen work in the past. I think it's important to just like, because advertising, it's all just stealing, right? It's like, competitor analysis. You're just looking at ads that others are doing, and then you're like, okay, well, that one looks cool. Let's try to do that. Or something similar to that. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And figuring out just ways to do it.
Yeah. I mean, so you've made ads that I've seen perform better than almost like anyone else in the world. Like, how do you come up with those ads that just, like, take off? It's not just looking at other competitors, right? Like, do you have any kind of process you go through when you're coming up with ideas? Like, if you sat down and you're like, all right, what's the next brief? Like, what are you doing?
Like, I don't know. Just my brain, I guess. It's like I wish I had more of a process, like, but it's just kind of like thinking about what I think would work. So like we spoke about it yesterday, but I don't buy anything online. Like, I'm like the worst person to try and sell to. Like, I don't want to buy any ads I see. I don't care. I'm just like, as soon as I see an ad, I'm like, I don't want to look at it. So my policy, or the way I think about it, is like, if I can make an ad that I think is passable, that maybe I will watch the whole thing. Yeah. Other people who do like to watch ads and buy stuff will like that more, because that's what they do apparently. Like, that's more built into them. Whereas I don't want to do anything, but if it looks good enough to me, and I'm like, okay, that's, I could like contemplate buying this. Yeah. Other people will. That's usually the way I look at it. So you put yourself in like the audience's shoes. Yeah. And then you like kind of work backwards. And it's the same when you're writing wide lines and stuff too, for like, UGC footage. You're always just getting you're essentially just like becoming someone else. Yeah. Like, you're like, I've been a menopausal woman in a life when I was working for one client, or like, I'm a fucking LA hipster chick in another one. It's just, you're writing all these lines as like you think that people would say. Yeah. And kind of like, and then I think through that you're like, okay, well, this person would like an ad like this. So when you get that feedback on something, how do you use that to correct or change your path, if at all, if you use data? Yeah, I think like once you get kind of the feedback or whatever, you can see what's working. So obviously when you're so I like to do 6 ads just because you can test different things. Yeah. And then once you see something working and you're like, okay, this one is actually doing way better than the rest of them, you're like, okay, why is that one working? And you're like, this headline is doing really well. And then you can try that headline with something else, and then you kind of just do it that way. And then when you're working at like, so hymns, I think at the start we would throw a bunch of stuff at the wall, like fun concepts and like, all the stuff and like really outside the box type of things. And then it just gets narrower and narrower. Yeah. And then it's just like, okay, well, like these 4 things will work. If I say this, and I have an attractive lady, that will work. And you're like, then why would you go through all the other hassle of doing all that other stuff when you see the evidence of the things that are working? Right. And you can. I think you definitely should mix in new outside concepts every once in a while, but like just to see what else could work. And I think I've trained a bunch of people in like creative strategy and stuff too, and it's usually just like, just do stuff, just make things. And then some of it will work, and then whatever works, you can be like, okay, why did this work? And then we'll, take that chestnut or whatever, and then we'll make another bunch of other stuff, and we'll see what works that way too. So,
when you're saying, hey, figure out what works, why does this work? How do you decide that something is the reason for performance?
Yeah, that's tough. Yeah. First of all, the way that I figure something's working is spend. As like a creative strategist, spend is like CPA and stuff is all that, like all those stuff are like good and thumb stop, but like spend is where the money is.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. I want to make the highest spending ad,
right.
Because that, for me, like they wouldn't be spending on that if it wasn't working.
Yeah.
And then once you do that, I think iterating on that, and you'll see, you're like, okay, well, this ad worked really well, but I changed this. I changed the talent. Exact same ad, talent's different, but it's not working as well. People prefer this talent.
Right.
Go back to that talent, and then you're like, okay, well, what if I change some of these headlines and test that way, and then kind of build on it that way? And you're like, okay, well, this one actually has done better than the initial one.
Right.
So then we're going to keep going down this kind of alleyway and testing more things and iterating more. So yeah, I think it's just a lot of doing the same thing until it works better.
Yeah. And then eventually you isolate these few things that work really well.
And they're your 4 things.
Scale them. And then in terms of the budget split, so you're like, we'll still try and test new things even when we figure out something that's working. What's the split there usually? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if I was doing percentage, I would go definitely 75% of things that I know are working.
Yeah.
And then, 25%, and even that might be a little bit too much, like maybe it's 80-20, but like 20% testing new things, just to throw stuff at the wall. And like, yeah, if you have, reviews are always really good, like you can look at reviews and be like, oh fuck, like this person really likes the customer service, and you're like, I would never have thought that customer service could be a selling point for this brand, but maybe it is, and then you can incorporate that into an ad, and people are like, oh fucking I love your customer service, and then that can be something that you can like rest your hat on.
Yeah. All right, you were talking a little bit about how like the data, I use data to come up with new ideas. Yeah, how do you incorporate data into creative?
I think it's funny, I think it's really important, and I think also the way that people just are, like, so creative strategists in general, some people are really analytic, like some creative strategists, but I think generally speaking most people are like just like the creative part of the strategist, where it's just like, okay, I'm creative, I can like piece some stuff together. So I think having insights, like an insights team at the agency that we were at, was really good, because they would like sift through all the stuff and then make it really clear for you. Whereas if you're on your own, it's a little bit harder to actually be like, okay, well I have to dig into all of this now and like see what's working. But it's for sure like insights are so important, because or else you're really just throwing shit at the wall and just hoping stuff works on like a continuous basis. Whereas the insights actually like help you structure what is working and then keep building off that. So definitely have someone who's good at insights to help you. If you're like me, where you're just like, and it's funny because when I first joined like Ready Set, like completely like the analytics side, I had nothing, and like you learn, like if you have coaches or like your boss or whatever will teach you stuff, you go slowly start building that knowledge up. But straight off the bat, I think it can be very tough and confusing for creative strategists. So like if there's a hello new creative strategist, how are you, get an insights person, it's what I would say, or someone that can help you, or really dig into that. Maybe you're analytical and that's something that works for you. You would be you like analyzing and stats and all that shit.
I'm a data nerd for sure.
Yeah, you're a data nerd. Yeah. Where would you say? So okay, so I would say I will just bring up 80-20, definitely 80% creative, 20% analytical. Where are you? Where would you
Good
fall
question.
on that spectrum?
Yeah, I think I'm 50-50. It's a pretty even split.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's a good place to be, probably.
Yeah. Then again, like I find that actually people who are more creative tend to have ads that work better. Maybe it's just something like it's harder to think outside the box if you're super far into the data end. And,
yeah. I think again, and I think flow. So flow is like probably one of the most important things I think in an ad. Whereas like, obviously the hook and stuff at the start, but like after that, if it feels weird, it's not gonna work. And I think maybe the analytical aspect of that would be like, okay, well if we just put like a 4-second shot of the product in here, like that will work.
Right.
But then it might not, like it might make no sense at all. But you need like the flow. I think flow is so important. I think that's what I was really good at, and that might have been from like being that creative and like doing the stuff beforehand and like studying film and all that, where I'm kind of like see content as like, again, I don't want to make ads. I just want to make entertaining pieces. So I think that flow is really important. So again, for anyone who's starting off, or even if you're an established creative strategist, I think flow is definitely something that you want to keep it on. But then also saying that, or I'm gonna contradict myself here, saying that is like, if you go into the data analysis or whatever, and say you have a hit ad, and you're like, fucking, it spent $200,000 in a month or whatever, and then you go into the thing and you look at where people are checking out, or like, and it could be the first 4 seconds of the ad. They're like, so that the thing was so good at the start, where the flow didn't even really matter.
Yeah, because how many people get to the end of the ad?
So again, it's funny, and I mean, who fucking knows what's gonna work, you know? In the grand scheme of things,
It's true.
it could be anything, and it could work. Like, I would have our team at Hims, so I would have editors underneath me or whatever, and they kind of would come up with their own briefs and concepts too. And I would watch them, and as long as something like wasn't like crazy, and like obviously they would have seen my ads, and like they're like, okay, well that's a really good place to build off of. But then they would send me their stuff to look at, and I would like go through it, and as long as it's like not really janky, and if it was janky, I would leave a note. I'd be like, this doesn't make sense, let's swap this. But like, if it seemed pretty smooth, I'm like, yeah, let's go with it. Like, because I don't know if it's gonna work or not. Like, no one does, so let's just run it. And I think that's also part of like, just run stuff, you know, just get stuff out there. Because it could, and then some of those ads were like big hits too. Like, again, and then they would have $100,000 ad or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, go you, and then I'd cheer them on. Because after a while, if you have a team of people who are just getting hit ads the whole time, you can just like, you know, you're set up. At that stage, you don't have to do anything else. They're like doing all the work for you. So I think that, and I think definitely, maybe you have a question about this, but collaboration I think is so important with creative strategy.
Yeah.
To even get like fresh eyes on stuff, or like even if you're working an account for, like I was working on that Hims account for like 2 years, and then you get fed up and you get tired and you're like, okay, well I've done the same ad 1,000 times now, and then you get someone new and who has a new perspective, and they also have your learnings from before, so they have that, and then they have the new like ideas and like excitement, and then I think that can all work too.
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah. Yeah. So in terms of collaboration, like, what does a typical team look like for a creative strategist?
So in an agency, so at Ready Set we had like the client success manager, who obviously would deal with the client, and then we'd have project manager, who is again like, you need the organizer to actually like do stuff, because I have done that stuff too, where I've kind of like been in charge of organizing and like stuff. If I see something that I don't think matters, I'm just like, okay, well I'm not going to do that one. Whereas like if you have someone, they're like, okay, we need to do this for this reason, and you're like, oh well, I didn't do that, so now what? And they're like, I'll go do it, whatever. So then they're really important. So, you know, shout out to Jasmine and Jordan. They're like, oh my god, like rock stars for me when I was working on my accounts. And then we had editors, and we had like a creative director who does kind of like the design stuff too. And so Fran also, I would just want to shout out all the people that I work with, because they're all amazing. So even when I left that job, I was like, I did nothing, you guys were the real stars. Like, maybe I like pointed you in the right direction, but like I think just having that team and coaching up that team is really important. Having the editors, and then so straight away, like if you have like an editor that you work with the whole time, the best thing that you can do is like sync up with them, like definitely speak to them about anything, and like even explain why you're doing the choices that you're doing, because that way they're coached up, and then they start to think how you think, and then at that stage you're just like, the notes can be like change this, like it can be one sentence things, they can do them in no time, and they know exactly what you're saying. So when we have a new editor or whatever, the first thing I would do is I would go and talk to them and be like, okay, this is how I work. I'm like real loosey-goosey, you know? Like, some stuff's gonna work, some stuff's not gonna work. We're gonna just, you know, be chill. And they're like, okay, this guy's fucking chill. He's not gonna lose his shit if an ad is bad. And then they feel more comfortable and they feel happier, and I think they work better. And they want to come to work, because they're like, okay, well, you know, it's fun.
It's having a good time.
So that's my philosophy on
like
team building.
Giving a lot of autonomy and letting people kind of do their own thing. And
for sure, because I think
guiding them a little bit.
Yeah, because even then you're happier, because like I imagine for an editor, and I have been an editor for years or whatever, but I imagine it could be pretty fucking boring or annoying if someone comes in and like blows your shit up, and you're like, you have to start all over again, but then they don't really tell you what they want, and then you have to like do that stuff, and then you're not being creative, because all these people are creative. Like, they got into editing because they were creative. And like, you know, I'm sure some people fucking love editing, and it's like their fucking thing that they want to do, but most people I'm sure want to do other stuff. They want to be creative people and do that. So that was mine. I was just like, build all those people up
and like help them become what they want to be.
And they'll be more excited to work, and like, you know, loyal, I would say. Like when I left that team, like I would nearly say half those guys, no, all of my team would nearly go into war with me. Like, I would be there with them too. I'm not going to send them to war.
You're on the front lines.
Yeah, I would be front line with them.
Yeah.
And like, we would all go as a team, or if there was an issue, I would go and fucking fight for them and bat for them or whatever. So yeah, all collaboration and, you know, look after your people. People managing is a big thing with creative strategy. And I know that's kind of from an agency aspect. And then I'm working internal at the minute, and it's the same thing, but to a lesser extent. But I think for like, if you're an independent creative strategist, maybe try and find a team that you can work with continuously, because it'll just make your life so much easier.
Yeah.
I'm always about like how, again, creative strategy is problem solving, but like how to make the job easier. Like, what steps can I take to make this job just so much easier that like it's just like, okay, this and this, and it's easy, and it's like, and then hopefully make it out. Sometimes it works. Who knows?
So just kind of systematizing things,
Yeah.
like making everything into a process so it's easier to follow, and
Yeah,
making
yeah.
that process better and better over time.
So in that way, I do have a process, but it's like, it's really just like, okay, it's like water, right? Water is gonna just go downhill. Whatever the easiest way is, it's gonna do that. So that's what I try and do. I'm just like, okay, well, like, this is annoying, so I'm just gonna like sidestep this and like do it that way and like make things easier for everybody.
Yeah, you're the Bruce Lee of
creative strategy. Oh, I'll put that on my LinkedIn.
It's a new headline.
Yeah, so that's the way I always think about it, and just life in general. Whatever the easiest way to do things is, just fucking do that.
Yeah.
Why go the extra step?
Yeah, I do find that being able to produce more creative, you have more chances for something to win, and you learn more that way.
Yeah.
And I sense that like it's similar that what you're saying. Be like water, like do whatever's easiest. If it's easier and you can produce more because it's easier, you'll actually end up getting more winners.
Yeah, and then also, so iterating. So like you have your concept, and then, because like in the agency they'd be like, oh, a minimum of like, 4 variations or whatever. It's like, they only want 2 variations. Like, fuck that. Get as many. Like, I do 6 just because you can test 2 different things, like A/B test 2 specific things. But like, if they were willing to get more versions, I would give them 8, 12, as many as I can, so that they can run that stuff.
Yeah.
And then we get more learnings, because you're like, okay, this one has taken off. There's more. I've thrown more shit at the wall, and that one stuck. So let's
keep doing that.
Keep doing that. Yeah.
What's the wildest concept that you've ever pitched?
I don't know. That's a good question. I feel like, because with Hims, Facebook, obviously, we're very particular about, sex stuff, what you can do or whatever. So I'm trying to think. It's probably other clients. I did have that one fun one, the little Super Mario. Did you ever see that ad?
No.
So it's a little Hims Super Mario. So it's an 8-bit one. Shout out, the guy who did it. He's a magician. I literally just called him the magician. But it was a little 8-bit style ad of a little man, and he's like jumping through, like, it looked like Mario, but he was like a little man. And then there was like a woman, Princess Peach or whatever, and she's in a building. She's like, she can't get out. And he's trying to jump up, and he can't get it. So then he jumps, and he hits one of the fucking brick things, and instead of the mushroom comes out, a little erectile dysfunction pill comes out, and then it falls on him, and he gets really big, and he just runs through the wall.
That's genius.
It was so good. I don't think they ever ran that, though.
Yeah.
Which is annoying. Yeah, but I think when I applied for my new job, I think I sent them that. I was like, this is fun.
That's a good ad.
So that's probably the wildest one, but I don't think they actually ran that one, which is annoying. So,
yeah.
I mean, if you're a sell, I think it's easy for selling to a guy. Just make sure there's women in it, because men are lizard brains. And they just want to see attractive women doing anything. Like, even if you're selling a manly thing with a truck or whatever, if there's a lady in it, or if she's like, that fucking little green screen thing at the bottom, just have anything like that, and you'll just get men's attention. Like, absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good lesson. So usually for the podcast, we come up with a few ideas for a brand. So,
okay, all right.
Do you want to choose a brand to come up with some ideas for?
I don't know. I think you give me a brand, right?
I give you a brand.
And I'll just give you 5 pitches.
How about a tree cutting service?
Tree cutting service.
Yeah.
Okay. So what, you want just like 5?
Yeah, just 5. That's
pitches.
You said 5. I usually look for like 1, 2.
Shit. Okay.
Now you got 5 though.
All
That's
right,
it.
5. Okay.
5.
So you got a bunch of trees, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Who's gonna want that? Probably men generally, but maybe their wives are telling them. So maybe the wives are looking at the ads. So let's get a sexy guy cutting trees. He's rubbing his brow just because I'm sweating. Now I'm doing this.
So it's actually starring you.
Yeah. So again, it's easy. So if I got a new brand and there was this tree surgery thing, actually we did have one of those TTCX. So it was the gutter. It was the gutter ones.
Oh, that's a good brand. What was that brand called? Do you remember? It's like 1-800-Gutters or something.
I can't remember exactly what it was called.
It's like Gator Gutter.
Yeah, but the product was cool. You just put it in your gutter and it stops all the leaves from going in.
Yeah.
And like it's so funny because like that's what the product is. You just put a thing. So then as a creative strategist, you're like, oh, stainless steel, like fucking doesn't rust, and like all these value props that at the end of the day, like no one really cares about. It's like, does it stop leaves going into my drain gutter? Yeah. Cool. Let's go with that one.
It's a really important point that like people don't care about your features at all. They care about the benefits they're getting from them.
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't do the job.
Yeah,
all right, so let's get 5 ideas for this gutter stopper.
The tree surgery, right? Well, I would do like a walkthrough of the service is always a good one. So like fucking step 1, go to our website. Step 2, book a consultation. Step 3, the tree surgeon comes out. Step 4, you're happy and your wife is happy or your husband's happy, and that's it, because that's like the benefit. Like, oh fuck it, well if they're happy then I'm happy or whatever. Yeah. And that kind of thing. So there's one.
That's pretty good.
But that was your template.
That's
my go-to.
Let's get something. Let's get
walkthrough. Something more creative.
Yeah.
But it's all stealing though, isn't it? At the end of the day, you know, it's all just stealing from.
No. You said the process comes from your brain. You're like, they just happen.
Oh no, yeah. Well,
no
on the
system.
Spot now. Yeah, no system. Okay. See, I was gonna say like 3 reasons why, but again, that's more templated version. So I have to go with a completely original
concept from your brain right now.
Okay, but can it be a parody of something?
It could be anything you want.
Okay, well it's gonna be a parody of fucking it's nearly Halloween. We're gonna do another parody of a spooky movie.
All right.
It's gonna be, what's the guy, Freddy Krueger, who has the claw hands. So it's gonna be fucking, I don't know, someone scraping at the window, and then there's a kid in this now, and he's terrified and he's freaking out and he's scared, and he calls his mom, and then she opens the window, curtains open, and it's just a tree, and it's the tree that's annoying, and it's not anything scary, it's just a tree. Wow. She calls up the guy, and the guy comes, cuts it, the kid sleeps calmly, and she's happy because the kid stopped fucking screaming.
Yeah.
How's that? There's a lot in that though.
No, you crushed that.
It would be
that is a pain point, right? Like I've had that when I was a kid growing up. We had a tree that scratched my window all the time, and I'd wake up in the middle of the night, freak out.
Scary, yeah. So I don't know. There's 2.
All right, pretty solid.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop there.
Yeah,
unless you pay me.
You made a good point, which is that there should be more information about like what the salary range is for creative strategists. So as a creative strategist, like, just, you know, junior, mid-level, senior, like what can you expect in terms of the range?
Well, it's funny because obviously I'm based in Canada, so the money was actually better when you change it into US to Canadian or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think it's good. Like, speaking from a Canadian who was working as an American for an American company, like the conversion with everything, it was good. It was way more. It was like nearly twice what I was making.
Wow.
In that old job, the third one that let me go.
Yeah, the agency.
Yeah. So it's good, and then I think if you do a good job and you prove your worth, I think it's easy to get raises and stuff to show your value. And then even like, so this is speaking specifically from agency aspect of it, and I think it's because they have the infrastructure that you can be like, okay, well, like, look at this ad, it's crushing it, and like this ad, and like look how much money we've made from this company, from my ads. Like, you know, I deserve, and you know, I don't want to blow my own horn or whatever, but at no point I already said that I ever have to go and ask for more money. Right. Whenever it kind of seemed like I should get more money, they were already like, okay, here's a raise. And I probably could have asked for more, but I also just liked working there. And I was like, especially once you get set up, I think in creative strategy, like the world is your oyster. I think after that, like there's so many avenues you can go down. Once you get set up and you know that you're doing a good job and you get it, like, what can't you do? Like, you can go internal, you can do consulting, you can do like different agencies. Like, there's so much different ways that you can like then grind. So like consulting is obviously something that you can do as a creative strategist, where you're just like, okay, I did a really good job in that company, I'll just leverage that experience and speak to other companies and like kind of keep building that way. So there's really, I don't like, in terms of the amount you can earn, it's crazy money. Uncapped.
Uncapped
yeah, potentially, like, So I'm not there yet, but hopefully that's the plan go forward. Like
bag of cans.
Yeah, bleep that.
Right. Just getting bleeped.
Yeah, that's my idea. So yeah, I think consultancy, is definitely the way to go once you're set up, and if you like it, because some people, I feel like, even in the agency, like people get stressed. And I think it can be a stressful job, but if you do it the way I do it, it's fucking not. Like, it should be easy. I think you can make it such an easy job. And I think that's one thing that I would have liked to do, is kind of talk to other people about how to make their life easier. And maybe that's the coaching thing. So maybe, that could be another thing that I can do in the future.
Yeah.
As long as consulting, I can also do coaching to show people how to make it easier. One thing I will say about making your life easier, it really depends on clients. Clients are like, if you have great clients, it's the easiest job in the world. Like, as long as you make ads that perform, it's the easiest job in the world. But like, if you have a fucking nightmare client, and then they don't want you to do the things that will work, and then you have to come up with whole new things, and then it doesn't work, and then they blame you, and you're like, well, it's your fault. I couldn't do any of the things I wanted to do. So it does, like, there's obviously a bunch of different factors, but if you can keep your clients happy, that's a fucking... And like, that doesn't have to be exclusively performance related. Like, being conversational, being, enjoying their time, and like so when they go into a meeting with you, they're not like, oh, this fucking guy. Like, they'd be like, oh fuck, we're gonna go see this guy, and like chat to him and be like, oh, I wonder how his weekend or stuff is, like that. And then you set up, because if that relationship is solid from the start, and maybe this is like the Irish conversationalist in me, where I'm just like, oh yeah. Where I'll just go in and like try to make people as comfortable as possible, and I want to be open, like, and collaborative with the clients as well, like whatever. So if they have insights, I'm always open to their insights, because first of all, why would you not? Like, they're like, oh, this is the stuff that we're working. You're like, okay, well, I'll do that too, and then I'll just mix in some other stuff. But having a really good relationship with all your clients, I think, is super important. And like making it nice and easy. Again,
do you have any like tips for having a good relationship? Is there anything you'd think of in terms of like a great client, that something that defines that kind of interaction?
I think just the things I was talking about, like being collaborative for sure, like asking them what they want, because like and like, you don't have to give it to them, but if you, it's almost the illusion of power, where you like, you ask them like, what do you guys want, like, what are you looking for? And then they might, like, they could give you great ideas, and you're like, oh shit, okay, that's a really good idea. Or they give you fucking ass ideas, and you're like, oh wow, that's a really great idea. And then you just ignore that, just discard that, because it's not important. But yeah, communication with your clients, making them feel at ease, giving them what they want, or at least, again, making them feel like they're in control of the relationship or whatever, I think is important too. And then obviously, if you can make performing ads, all those other things become a lot easier. They're gonna like you a lot more if the ads are working. But it's important too. Like, don't go in, even if you have a bunch of hit ads, don't go in and be a fucking dick, because like, what does that accomplish too? Just make your life as easy as possible. And I think that's one way. As soon as we got a new client, I would always go in and just try and make sure that I charmed them, essentially. And like, even if we had new clients and I wasn't gonna be working on them, sometimes I would just be in meetings just as like a fucking essentially a second client success manager, like to go in and just work the room, be like, oh, I like your hat, we're like all that stuff. But I think like some people aren't like that. Like, obviously it's more difficult for some people to be that open and conversational, but work on it, It'll make your life easier.
What exercises would you go through to train those skills?
Go to Ireland, I think, and just chat to the people, or find your local Irish person and get them, talk to them, find out whatever they're doing, and just do that.
I've learned everything about trying from Michael in the past 20 minutes. What methods do you have to prevent burnout? Earlier you were talking about burnout in our industry.
I don't know, I think that burnout is definitely tough. Burnout creatively, more so than like, because again, I feel like you understand that I don't want, at no point, I don't, no, there was sometimes where I would work a full 8-hour day, but like, if I can do all my work in 4 or 5 hours and just get out, like, that's absolutely what you should, especially for creative strategy. It's harder if you have consulting and you have more clients or whatever, like, that can be tough, but whatever you can to like limit the amount of, like, so you have more free time to do, because like, why that's part of the reason why I love the job, is that I would have free time to go do other stuff. But creatively it's tougher, because there's only so many avenues you can go through, and then like if you're working on a client for 2 years, you do feel burnt out, and you're like, you just kind of, not that you don't care anymore, but you're like, oh, like that effort I have to go through to try and just think of something fresh. Yeah. And I think that's when you do get someone fresh in, like you just get new eyes.
It's just time to get someone else
something
to help.
new. And like you can still be part of that process. But like when I was, Josh took over the Hims accounts, and I was just like really front facing with him or whatever. Like I wanted to make his life as easy as possible. And I think it is. Like I essentially just gave him the blueprint of what I was doing, and I was like, okay, like this is going to be the easiest job you ever had. Just fucking put your spin on it or whatever, like, and do it that way. And I think, I need to reach out to him to make sure it's still going well. But when I left, he was having a great time, and he was really receptive to like the structure and the layout that we had. Like, just build that process and then just let it run. just watch it go. Yeah. But yeah, I think in terms of burnout, do as much as you can until you really feel like you can't contribute anymore, and then, just try and find somebody else to step in and
go somewhere else.
Yeah, do something new and fresh. And I think with an agency, that's always fun too. Is that there's always new clients that you can jump on, and like I would work on other stuff like the TTCX things too. Sure. So like Velcro, we did that big 70% conversion, fucking dots or whatever, and we did a bunch of fun stuff in TTCX. That's a really good. So I was always. That seemed always like it was on its last legs, that Ready Set too. Like the people, because it didn't bring in a bunch of money, although that 1 month it brought in like 70k or whatever.
10 clients at once,
Yeah, so I think, but it was really good for just keeping things fresh and being exciting, and like working with TikTok, and like, everything that goes on TikTok, like it seemed to work. So
for just these brands that had a ton of brand equity, I think.
Yeah. And who just didn't know how to access TikTok, or they didn't know like what was the first step, or like how to make ads specifically for TikTok, and then they would just come to us, and we're like, okay, well, you have the brand awareness, so we just gotta make sure that it's not the worst piece of shit anyone's ever seen.
Make something generally direct response, but not Facebook. Yeah. What like if someone's trying to get into TikTok, like I hear this all the time, it's really hard to crack TikTok. Do you have any advice for starting to make creative for that channel?
Yeah. I think it just needs to be more fun. I think Dior on Meta is like, you can have fun on Meta or Facebook or whatever, but it's more. I think it's more. UGC, first of all, can be those type ads. They're the type ads that I prefer. It's like real, quote unquote stuff. And if you can get real users, way better. Apps, that's my favorite thing. If I have real users, I'm flying. But then you can get actors or UGC talent or creative content people or whatever, and they'll do all that stuff. But yeah, I think TikTok just needs to be more fun and like have more fun, because it's really an entertainment thing, because you're skipping through, it's just videos of like funny cats, or like fucking, a guy wrestling and then he falls through a table or something like that.
Yeah.
So then if it comes to a really serious fucking ad or whatever, like especially Gen Z, they're not gonna give a fuck. Yeah. Like they definitely, I think they've come around. So initially we were like, okay, well, it needs to be like organic stuff so that you could trick people. So it's not an ad, it's just like we're creating content and there's a little morsel of an ad in here. But I think Gen Z now at that stage are like, fuck you, I know this is an ad. Like, so then you have to also do a thing where it's like, okay, so then you go meta, then you're like, okay, we are an ad, but look, it's fun. And then they're like, okay, talk to me more. And then I think that way, but that could change again in fucking a year's time, and it'll be something new, and you'll have to figure that out too. So I think TikTok really evolves quickly. Yeah.
Is there any prediction that you have for the future of creative strategy for TikTok, Facebook?
I don't think so. I think all that stuff is above my it's above my head.
No prediction, not even a single.
No, I think
scrap.
I think TikTok, like last year in the agency side, we fully expected TikTok to like really overtake Meta and like just skyrocket. Yeah. But I don't think that's happened. In terms of spending and stuff, it's strong. Like TikTok's strong, and I personally spend more time on TikTok now than I do on Facebook. Who goes on Facebook anymore?
Sorry, but Instagram.
Yeah, Twitter is the other thing that I go on, but that's also very dependent on how my sports teams are doing. So if my sports teams are doing bad, I'm not on Twitter.
Yeah. Do you have any people that you look up to in the industry, or like anyone that you follow, or?
Yeah, I feel like when I first got into the agency, Talon was my kind of pod lead at the time. Learned a bunch of stuff from him. So he actually was the one who was like, okay, this is how you do it in like the easiest way possible. Like, don't fucking like worry about shit.
Yeah.
And he would kind of put that on him. He's like, okay, you can do whatever you want. I'll take the blame for it. Like, they're not gonna fucking give me shit if you fuck up or whatever. Like, I'll look after you, which was great too. And like, I feel like I would definitely do that for my team as well. But they were always so good. They would never get me in trouble.
Yeah.
So that was good. Then Monique took over when Talon left again. And I feel like you should always be learning from like everyone you work under or work with. There should always be like things that you take. Even before that stuff, like Paul Toby I mentioned, just learning all that stuff. Like, be a sponge to everything and just soak everything in.
Yeah.
And then just find the best way to apply it to yourself.
If there's any question that you want to ask future creative strategists, what would you ask?
How did we defeat the AI?
Well, I mean, future in like a week, not in like 10 years.
How did we stop climate change?
Okay, last question.
Okay, all right. Hopefully I'm better at
Now
this
you're going to nail this. Do you think that humanity will ever achieve immortality?
It depends on what you would consider immortality. I feel like we're probably not that far away from just being able to upload your brain into like a computer and then you could just continue to live as a computer. But like, staying physically alive, it's probably tough.
I see.
And also it would suck. Who would want to be immortal? Like, what's the point? There's no jeopardy in that, you know?
There's no jeopardy?
Like, yeah, no like, yeah, there's no risk. Like, you know, if fucking, you need the bad and the scary bits or whatever to like feel alive so that the good bits actually feel good. So having immortality, I think, would be like really redundant. And then like, you know, what's the point of life if you just always have it? How's that? It's deep, I think.
Message. Thank you for being on the show, Michael.
Everyone should die.
We all should die. You heard it here first.
And go to Ireland.
Go to Ireland.
You know, advertising for Ireland. Let's go. Oh, and my girlfriend makes cakes. If you need cakes, hit me up.
We'll put the link in the bio.
Yeah.
The link in the show
notes for the cake. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.